welcome back to Shadowboxing. My guest is Scott, and we continue our discussions on the very interesting issue. Are we have a government in Australia or a company is running this country? Scott.
Right.
What do you think?
Well, we go back to this company that's
registered in the United States
under the company filings in Washington. There's talk, and this I don't have the information on. As far as I know, it was registered in 1929 that is, and then either that was rejected and it was refiled in around 1933 or 34. Now, whether that's the case, I don't still have the piece of paperwork to say that. And I base a lot of my work off the questions that arise from some of these things, such that if this company is set up for the trading of bonds, presumably government bonds, then the prerequisite of that is surely government. And in Australia, to have your government,
yes,
you need the administrator of the government, which is your Governor-General.
That's true.
Now, that position is laid out in the Constitution, and specifically the letters patent that constitute the office of Governor-General. And in 1900, Queen Victoria put those in place. And a very interesting paragraph was her reservation of power and authority to the heirs and successors of herself for the alteration, amendment or revocation of those letters patent. So basically she's saying that we reserve the power and authority to revoke, alter or amend these letters patent constituting the office of Governor-General to ourselves or our heirs and successors.
Nothing wrong with that.
Seems quite good.
Yes.
And those letters patent are issued under the Great Seal of the United Kingdom, that lion and the unicorn.
Yes.
It's the same seal that we see above the courthouses in a lot of the places around the country.
Yes.
Ironically, Customs House in Sydney and Mackay and a few other places around the country, we see the lion and the unicorn. And then in 1984, there's another set of letters patent that are issued under the Great Seal of Australia, the kangaroo and the emu. However, there's a slight little complication that comes in there which raises another set of questions, is that kangaroo and the emu is now registered with the United States Patent and Trademark Office as a trademark.
For a company?
Well, at the moment I just see it as a trademark.
Yes.
Now typically you see companies like Coca-Cola register their trademarks, McDonald's register them trademarks.
Yes.
Companies ordinarily register trademarks. I don't see too many governments registering trademarks in as much as they have, in theory, laws to protect against people using that. And in Australia, from my research of the Crimes Act of 1914, there's a paragraph in there specifically that refers to the passing off a mark or a seal as if
like
it were
a government? Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Then you have to go to jail.
Yep.
And you will.
Exactly. So to me, the protection for using a seal that belongs to government and counterfeiting it in that sense,
it's a crime.
The protection is in the Crimes Act. I thought, well,
so why do you need patented?
Don't need copyright or trademark registration. That seems to be the realm of companies. So there's a few dots to be joined in terms of these questions that are being asked. And so we go back to these letters patent of 1984 and go, well, why are they seemingly issued under a Great Seal of Australia that's a trademarked seal? Is that the royal seal that would put the royal representative in place, being the Governor-General? The Queen's representative would, I'd imagine, use the same seal as the Queen.
That's correct.
Is that really what's happening? Does the royals issue this document? And so my question has been to those in government and customs who still have my car, is were these letters patent of 1900 revoked by an heir and successor to the late Queen Victoria under the full reservation of power and authority that was reserved back in 1900?
Because we're missing that. No one told us that's been revoked ever.
Yep.
So what's going on? What do you think what's going on in here?
If that isn't the case, and we actually have those letters patent of 1900 are still valid and are still supported by the Queen in England, then we have the situation where that office is vacant, and we have potentially got another office that potentially reports to the Washington with their trademarked logo and is operating in very much like a corporation here in Australia. That puts us with two systems. Now, the two systems runs parallel to Government of the Commonwealth, Australian Government, Parliament of the Commonwealth, Parliament of Australia. The evidence for two systems is stacking up quite nicely, and there's a few dots to be joined. And yet all of these questions that I'm firing off to the likes of Customs to show the GST Act, the Act for Luxury Car Tax, the Act that even put Customs into existence, did that get royal assent by a Governor-General properly commissioned and of the office of the Queen?
And if not?
And we're talking an heir and successor to the late Queen Victoria. We're not talking any other pretend Queen that may or may not exist.
So what about this pretend Queen of Australia? Tell us about this.
Well, there appears from research that I've come across that in 1973 an act of the Parliament of Australia, again, which Parliament were we dealing with, created or was the introduction of the term Queen of Australia. Now, there are many who actually argue that the Queen of Australia is not actually the real flesh and blood heir and successor to the late Queen Victoria, but a corporate fiction, a legal entity, a statutory entity, one that's been created on paper but doesn't actually exist. Now, this is all sounding really hard to believe in many cases, and you think, how is this possible?
Hard, yes.
It is.
To admit that.
And it's like, what is really happening here? And again, put these questions to those in these positions of power, authority. Ask the Governor, could you please give me a straight answer to whether those letters patent were revoked?
And you got no answer from them.
Nothing. And this is seemingly happening across all levels of government, from a parking fine to rates to departments to Customs to the Minister for Justice. At all levels, all the way across the board, these questions that are being asked are meeting silence.
So it's probable now we are living in a proxy government and a proxy country.
Well, if that principle of not getting any answer has any merit, which I believe it does, then yeah, that's exactly what it's shaping up like.
So skeptics will say that it's all technicality. Who cares about it? Do you think anyone cares about this one, apart from you, in Australia?
It has actually been very encouraging, the amount of emails that I've had come in following the launch of that documentary, congratulating me and supporting me with emails that have come in to say my child was taken off me by this department who appears to be just a company. I've had to pay this to this department for this reason, and yet when I ask them for evidence of their legitimacy, I got nothing. So the emails have been flooding in of people in similar situations and actually congratulating me on, I suppose, taking this step. And I don't do that to big note myself. In many ways, where I've gone appears to be bigger than the issue of just me getting my car back.
That sounds like bigger than Ben-Hur itself.
It's a fairly monumental kind of subject.
So what people can do, what do you think was the solution is?
Well, I've come at this from asking questions, which I believe is something that we're all entitled to do. So I would suggest arming yourselves with some of the knowledge of those original founding documents for the letters patent, or even just using my documentary as a tool and saying to your local member, could you please comment on this? Are these questions valid? What legitimacy lies behind this? Could you offer some comment or suggestion as to the validity of that? And if it comes back to those governors and the Governor-General and the validity of their office, we could be in for trouble.
That could be very, very interesting. But two last things, just quickly. One is, if we going to succeed and we became a republic, probably the whole issue is just go away.
In many ways, yes. It appears if we've got this dual situation at the moment, either one of them can't make up their mind as to who's who. Do we have this constitutional monarchy that we were brought up with, or do we have this corporate government? If we were to bring in a republic, yeah, probably that whole hassle goes away. Though then we're back into a whole kettle of fish of what do we replace it with? And there are probably many people in this country who are far more well versed with the replacement system than I am. But it does raise another whole kettle of fish of questions.
Tell me, the money, what we're using in Australia, what is the problem with that one, using the same analogy as you use for the company?
Well, my belief is it's not backed by anything of intrinsic value, like gold and silver. Within the Constitution, it clearly lays out that there
on our Australian Constitution, issued in 1900,
the Constitution of 1900,
which is the only one what we know, hopefully.
Yes, and any one that was altered in accordance with the provisions within it. It clearly lays out that nothing shall be coined for the payment of debts other than gold or silver. Now, if our currency is not in any way backed by gold or silver, well, are we breaching the elements laid out in the Constitution? There's another question that's unanswered. And there's probably plenty more people who can dig a lot deeper on that one, on the banking issues, the Reserve Bank of Australia, whether that's a company or whether that is real government. Where does it end?
I don't know, Scott, but thanks for coming on to Shadowboxing. It was nice talking to you. I wish you all the best for your real shadowboxing. Thanks again, Scott.
Thank you.
And please come back to watch Shadowboxing next week. Same channel, same time.